Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Kathy McDaniel, and she has one of those near-death experiences that everybody is curious about because Kathy went to hell. Good Catholic girl, Kathy, and we all want to know the story.
Well, yeah, you're right. I had a fairly interesting childhood. My dad was in the Navy, so we traveled a lot. I lived on the East Coast, Midwest, and West Coast. I was always the new kid because, people in school generally have been there for years and years together. So that made me, I think, it was good for me. At the time, I didn't like it, but now I can bounce back from just about anything. But what happened with the NDE is that I had, I was probably in my mid 50s. I had my own property management company that I'd been running. I'd been in the business for many years and I loved it because I could help people. And my sister worked for me and my daughter, and it was just great. And I had a wonderful fiance. We'd been together about 7 years. He's the one that encouraged me to start my own business. He helped put my kids through college. I mean, we were really tight. We had a good relationship. We were both workaholics, and that worked. But then he got transferred to the East Coast. We'd been having problems because I brought in my family members. I had more time off, and I was wanting to go like weekends to Carmel, or let's go do something fun. I mean, we work all the time. And he couldn't get into that space. He had no one. He was running a large facility, and he was at the top of the food chain. So we were kind of drifting apart. And when he got called out to the East Coast, he says, well, okay, you can sell your business and leave your family and your kids that are in college and come live with me. I'll get a great, he ended up with a penthouse apartment in downtown Chicago. If you've never been there, you'd understand why I wouldn't want to go.
Right.
And I thought, I'm 53 years old. I've got all this going on. We're not getting along. And you want me to go live in an ivory tower? I said, that's not going to work. I love you dearly. Go and fly, butterfly, fly and live your dream. And we'll still stay in touch. I mean, I still love you and all that stuff. So fast forward, it took a while for him to actually get there. In the meantime, this is about a year or two later, I had sold my business, but I still didn't want to go to Chicago. And we drifted off. He was dating somebody. I was dating somebody. Well, when he got there, he wasn't real good about taking care of his health since I was gone. He went to the doctor because he had this big lump in his neck, and they said it was leukemia. Boom. He's 53 years old. He calls me up and he says, I need help. I said, what? Anything. He says, I need you to go with me to Seattle, and I'm going to go to a research hospital, and I'm going to see if they can save my life. Well, I was floored. I mean, yes, of course, I'll go. Heavens, when do we go? So I had to go first. In the meantime, he'd been dating this lady, and he needed 2 caregivers. And he asked her to be the other one. And she said, sure, if we get married. I'm not going unless we're married. So there was a shotgun wedding there so they could fly out. And so I found us an apartment on Pill Hill in Seattle. And I didn't know where Washington was. I lived in California. I couldn't remember if it was Oregon, Washington, or Washington, Oregon. Never was good in geography. But there we were, the 3 of us, living in this, what was supposed to be a 2 or 3 month, maybe 5-month procedure. She and I tippy-toed around, that was fine. Here he was in the middle. And it was horrendous. He was so sick by the time he got there that they jumped in. They had to get his numbers up, his white cells or whatever. Then they'd go down, and then he would start bleeding. He'd wake up in the middle of the night and he's bleeding. They've started the procedure. They're giving him drugs. He's sick. It was total trauma around the clock for almost 9 months. By that time, I was a wreck physically and mentally and spiritually and emotionally. She had broken her foot about 2 months prior. So she's on crutches and I'm doing all the work and taking care of her. And then he died. It was horrible. I never in a million years thought he would die. He was my rock, so here I was. I didn't know what to do. I'd left my home. I'd sold my business. I just needed to kind of chill for a while and figure out what I wanted to do. I had been dating a man there that I met casually, but he was a nice guy. And I started getting sick. I got a cold, and then it was a flu that I picked up. And then I was supposed to have my friend that I was dating come over and have dinner that night. And I called him out and I said, I have never been this sick. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'd been to one of those doc in the boxes and they gave me 2 kinds of pills and said, and I couldn't get them filled, and it was raining, and I didn't get them filled. It was interesting. When I came out of the hospital, I put on the raincoat and there were the pills in my pocket. I had gotten them, but I never had a chance to take them. So I called the young man and I says, I'm coughing so badly. I'm afraid. I'm up on the 3rd floor of an apartment building I was renting. It had no elevator. I says, I don't think I can get up and down those stairs again. So he came over and slept on the couch. And in the middle of the night, I started coughing horribly. I went into the bathroom, and with the next cough, blood just went everywhere. And I thought, oh my God, that's not a good sign. So I woke him up and I says, I think I'm dying. I don't know what's going on. So he wrestled me down the stairs, got me to the doc in the box. It was, I don't know, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And thank God they were open. But by the time I got there, I could feel my life. It was like energy was like settling and leaking out my feet. So I'm in the car and I just started saying, I'm dying, I'm dying. And I tried to push open the door. And when I did, I fell. And that's all I remember. So he had come around, picked me off the tarmac, had slammed the car into park because I was, tried to get out before the car stopped. Took me inside, no pulse. They called an ambulance, took me to the hospital, got me going, and says she is one sick puppy. She's got pneumonia and we're going to have to put her in the hospital. So they did. So I remember waking up in the hospital. I've got an oxygen tent. The television's on. There's my mom and my sister and my daughter. 2 of them lived in California, one in Colorado. I said, what's going on? They said, you're really sick. And I said, well, what happened? They said, well, I don't know. You've got pneumonia now and you're not responding. So that was New Year's Eve. I remember because they had the ball was going down, off the Space Needle. That's the last real memory I have, except that the doctor came in and said that, was telling my parents, she's not breathing. We're going to have to intubate her and put her in a coma. Just try and save her. That's my nice scar here, my little trach scar. And I'm going, huh, what? And my dad, I just remember them shooing everybody out. And my dad, there was a little picture window on my door and he's just giving me a little thumbs up. And I thought, okay, the thumbs up. And I was gone. Well, before the doctor had put me out, I asked, wait a minute, how long and what's going to happen? And am I going to feel anything? He says, no, we're giving you white amnesia. That's a drug. And so you will be unable to remember anything that happens to you while you're in the coma. We don't want you pulling your tubes out. We don't want you struggling. We don't want you stressed. You're just going to be in a deep sleep. You'll never remember a thing. Famous last words. So off I went. And I just remember being awake, conscious, and it was completely dark. And I thought, what the hell? And I was looking around and it was, yeah, exactly, a little premonition there. So I remember thinking, well, I can't move because I don't know if I'm standing on something. Am I laying down? I can't tell. Nobody's around. I'm afraid if it's something bad, if I'm hiding from somebody, I don't want them to know where I am. I thought, I'm just going to stand here. I felt like I was in a closet or something. I thought, okay, I'll just wait it out, but I was curious. Then it seemed like it was getting a little lighter, kind of like the sun was coming up or something. You know, it gets a little lighter. But all I could see really was this like swirling fog. And there was this reddish glow. And then it started getting warm. And then there was awful smell. And then I started hearing shrieks and moans. I thought, oh God, this can't be good. And then I heard this voice boom out, just out of everywhere. I had no idea where it came from. It says, you know where you are. All I could come up with was hell. And then it laughed, this horrible, maniacal, booming laugh. Scared me half to death. I didn't know I was dead. That's the fun thing about it being on. You don't know you're dead. You're still you. You know, you
Yeah.
didn't have a mirror. I couldn't see. I didn't have a
It's
body.
not how
I
we
didn't know.
picture it.
No, I ran. I ran into the darkness. I turned to my left and I scooted out of there. Then it started to clear up and I could see that I was like in this bombed out city. And there was huge, it was like New York or someplace, because there was huge skyscrapers with the windows blown out, and some of them had fallen over, and there were fires and smoke and people screaming. And I thought, oh, that's what happened. There was an atomic bomb, you know, and I got, oh my God, I got to run for my life because I'm hearing all these noises. I thought maybe there's soldiers, maybe there's, I don't know what. There was skittering sounds and kind of things from a, I don't know, a sci-fi movie. And I thought, well, maybe something else is happening. Yes, aliens. I didn't know. I just had to run. So I found this big, huge piece of concrete that kind of had a V in it. And I tucked in there, and I thought I could feel my heart beating, and I was just hysterical. I didn't know what to do. And I thought, okay, just calm down. You know, let's take stock. You're alive. That's good. And so I just started listening, and I heard kind of a funny noise of movement. And I looked, and quite a ways over, I could see another person, I thought, hunched over, hiding. And I thought, oh, thank God, there's two of us. And my Girl Scout skills kicked in, and I said, hey, hello, you know, why don't we get together? You know, we'll look for food, you know, we'll start a fire. And he stopped me, and this male voice came out and said, we are all alone here. What does that mean? That's a no, but I don't know what else it means. And again, this scuttering sound came and went by, and kind of a shadow, like a huge spider or something. I thought, this is ridiculous. How did I get here and what's going on? But I didn't really have time to think about it because I was trying to stay alive. I thought if I could just get out of here, I had to get out of here. There must be other people. So then these other shadow figures started kind of coming toward me. They didn't look friendly. And so I decided to make a run for it. And I ran through the concrete and the rebar sticking out all over, and little fires here and there. And I jumped and tried to get up over this piece of concrete, and I couldn't make it. And I slid down, and I was just sitting there. There was a conversation with the creatures that came, and they left. And then I took off again. And then I was somewhere else. It was like somebody dropped a sheet and said, all right, scene 2, click. And I'm in another place. And this was an interesting situation. And it wasn't frightening. It was just weird. It was like a stage set, but it was cockeyed and crooked and like a mirror image. And I thought, again, I don't know what's going on. And then there's somebody I know from Earth. I didn't know I wasn't on Earth. And I thought, oh, okay, good. And she said, sit up on this stage and we'll start the interview. And I thought, what? None of it ever made sense. And so that was a person that I knew, and we kind of got in a conflict. She was trying to tell me how, she said, you look like hell. Here, let's put a little makeup on you. You look terrible. I said, no, you don't understand. This is not a makeup situation. This is a really deep, serious thing. And you need to shut up about looking good and listen to me. Well, she and these other people just started laughing like I was just so stupid. And so I got off the stage and I walked into the dark. Well, this happened many times, these different scenarios. The first time I met a demon, it was, because again, I didn't know where I was, but there was this demon. There's no other word for it. It's kind of Bigfoot in a really bad mood kind of person thing. I don't know, but he said, you're never going to get out of here. That was a nice greeting. And I said, I don't know where I am, but I'm not staying here. I will find a way out. You know, what are you talking about? And he said, well, I got a shortcut for you. And I says, yeah. And he says, if you can do a task, I'll see to it that you get out. And I said, well, what's the task? And he said, I need you to cut down. And then he swoops his arm and the landscape, the light went up. And as far as you could see were these huge blackberry vines. They intertwine. I don't know if you've ever seen a field of them, but they've got big thorns on them. They're very thick. And he says, if you can cut down all these vines, I'll see to it you get out. I thought, you SOB, you're playing with me. I felt like a cat in a mouse game. I said, what? Because on Earth, I didn't later, this was the reflection I got later. That was one of my bugaboos is I moved into several houses that had these damn vines everywhere in the backyard and I had to get out there and cut them down. So I brought them with me to hell. He says, yeah. I says, okay, fine. And he hands me these little kindergarten scissors that you cut paper with, little kids that are rounded on the end, and starts laughing. This is all very real. I mean, this is happening. And I thought, and I grabbed the scissors from him and I scooted down because the vines were already starting to poke me and scratch me. And I started gnawing on this, inch wide vine, gnawing and gnawing and gnawing. He's chuckling over there thinking this is so funny. I was mad. And I finally cut the damn thing. And I went to stand up and it grew back. Now he's really laughing. He says, just despair, just give up. You're never getting out of here. And I says, we'll see. And I leaned down and I started cutting, well, boom, next scene. And this went on. There was a terrible demon again it was a hospital setting. I all of a sudden it was light and I thought, oh, good, this is good. And then I thought, well, this is really long hall. It was quite wide. And I thought, well, it's a hospital. And there were doors on either side of me. And I just glanced over at them because when I looked up at the end of the hall, here's another one of these big, ugly ogre demons with this big truncheon or club or something. And he's coming full bore down the hall, stomp, 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 right at me. And I thought, oh no. So I turn one way and another and I look and he's right there. And he's got the stick thing. And he said, you've got a job. And I says, oh yeah? He says, yeah, you got a job. And I says, well, what's that? And he says, you go in that room over there on the right and you take what they give you. And then you come across the hall and you go on the room on the left and you put it down. You come across to the right, that comes to the left. That's going to be your job. And I thought, well, he's in the hall. Maybe I can get in one of these rooms and sneak out a back door. I said, sure. So I walked into this room and it was quite large. And there's all these like gurneys with people laying on them with white sheets, but they've got their legs splayed and the sheets are, and there's like doctors working between the legs. And I thought, what the hell? And again, and one of the doctors raises his hand like this. It's all bloody. And I thought, I don't even know what. And he says, get over here. So I went running over and he said, stick out your arms. And I stuck them out and he takes an aborted baby and slaps it into my arms. I was a Catholic girl. I didn't believe in abortion. I had worked for Birthright. That's an anti-abortion group that used to help ladies uh, keep their babies, find them housing and get, so this was just like one of the worst things you could do to me. And I just looked at that mess, that little feet and all that stuff. And he says, get out of here. And so I'm in shock. And I went out in the hallway and I'm just looking at this beast. And he says, take it to the other room. So I just kind of wandered over there in shock. And when I went into that room, Peggy, as far as I could see, it was like this huge Costco warehouse with big mounds and piles of all these little bodies. And I was just sick. And I thought, oh, this is horrendous. And I just put the little body down and I backed out into the hall. And I said, I'm not going to do that. And he says, oh, yeah, you are. And get over there. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. He said, you don't know what you're asking for. Every time you do this, it's going to get worse. And he picked up his stick like he was going to club me into the ground. And I just shut my eyes. I thought, I'm not doing it. And boom, I'm somewhere else. I feel like I was there about 2 years. That's what it felt like. There's no clocks. The sun doesn't come up. It was always dark and dank and except for that hospital room. But I was on this road a lot where I would just boom, find myself on this road and you look one way and it goes on forever. And you look that way and it goes on forever. And you can barely see. There's like a reddish glow in the background and just rocks. And it's a path more than a road. I didn't know which way to go. I just picked right and started going. I thought, well, at least I'm alone. Maybe it'll lead somewhere. Or maybe I'll find somebody else, that I can pair up with because I can't just stand here. So I trudged and I trudged and I trudged and I went. And then along this road, I had several other experiences. One that was, at first I thought I was safe. I was, again, not knowing I was dead. I felt hungry. I felt tired. I felt depressed. I'm trudging along this road. I'm feeling hungry. I'm thirsty. And I start to smell something that smells really good. It smells like food and it sounds wonderful. And I thought, oh God, there's people. Okay, this is real food, people. And I kind of picked up my step. And when I came to this area, it was like a widening of the road. And there was like again, another movie set in the middle of the road. And on one side was a man sitting in a chair and he was dressed kind of funny. And he didn't seem like he could see me or something. So I looked on the other side and there was several big tables just piled high it was like a banquet or a feast or a Thanksgiving dinner or a celebration of some sort. And oh, wow, I thought this is great. And the lady that was dishing things up and moving dishes around and all that and arranging it turned. And it was a person I knew, another relative. Both of these were relatives. And I said, oh my gosh, so-and-so, I'm so happy to see you. I'm so hungry. I'm so thirsty. Can I have just a little plate of something? And she turned to me and she knew who I was. And she says, this is for the important people. Oh, I wanted to cry. I said, what? And she says, this isn't for you. And turned her back. And so I thought, okay, now I'm embarrassed. Now I'm humiliated. Now I've got, this happening too. I got back on the road and kept going. And I don't know the time. It just felt like forever. I thought at one point, this is a freaking treadmill. I'm just going to walk like this forever. It doesn't really go anywhere. The scenery doesn't really change. I know I'm walking, but it just always looks the same. Every now and then there'd be a pile of rocks or something. So to get toward the end, I started seeing another widening. And it looked like there were people kind of milling around. was more like a scary movie because they were like dressed in rags, dark. They weren't talking. They were kind of trying to avoid one another, kind of milling about. If you've ever seen Night of the Living Dead, that's what it reminded me of. And I thought, this is dangerous. I have to try and pretend like I'm one of these people till I can get through this town gathering, whatever it is, because it just was dangerous. So I kept my eyes down and I kind of slowed my walking and I started walking through them, and they stopped. They slowed and they stopped. It was like they could sense that somebody not like them was there. And then this agitation started, and like a mob thing. And I could tell the difference between the males and the females. The females were backing up and the males were coming to where they surrounded me. I thought, oh no, this is not going to be good. And they started pushing me and taunting me. And they had growly voices. It was the glimpses that I got of them. It was like their flesh was rotting and like they had some horrible disease or something. And I don't know. I was very frightened. And then they finally pushed me down, and that was a gang attack situation. I was screaming and kicking, and I could feel the abuse. And finally, they started backing off, and one just leaned into my face really closely, and the breath was horrible. And like I say, the skin was faking. And he says, we all have AIDS, and now you have it, and now you will become like us. And the bad thing is you can't die. And then he backs off and they wander off. So I was laying there with what was left of my clothes, a little disheartened. I thought, this isn't getting better. And this woman came up. She had a cloak on too, but she wasn't one of them. And she says, you're with us now. Get in line. So there was a lot of other ladies like myself that followed her. And I was about giving up. I thought, this is just, I don't know what this is, but I don't know that I can go much further. But I still thought there's got to be a way. So through a long, the scene changed into this driving snowstorm. And we were trudging through this drifts of snow that kept getting deeper and deeper. And cold as hell is a real thing. Again, I didn't know where I was. I just knew this was going from bad to worse. And we were trudging through and got to this, like a shack of some sort. The wind was blowing through it. It's cold. We were shivering. It was awful. And she says, okay, now we wait for customers. The fight was going out of me. So whatever, I'm not giving up. But I'm pretty close to thinking maybe something I can't get out of. But I thought, no, I was just depressed, and we were just waiting. And I said to that lady, I says, I've been here a long time. I'm feeling a lot more darkness. I'm feeling, is it just me, or is something else happening? She says, oh, it's Christmas on earth. It's always the worst day in hell. Hell? Oh, all right. It's Christmas, huh? So I started singing my favorite Christmas carol.
That's when you knew you were in hell?
No, I would not accept that. I would not accept it. I just pushed it out of my mind, and I thought, Christmas, okay, I'll think of something positive. And I started singing Away in a Manger. And she said, shut up. And one of the other ladies started singing, and then another and another. And the demon lady was getting all excited. She was on the other side of the room. There were several ladies in between us. And we came to the part, the little Lord, and she shrieked and pushed away the people and came at me. And I shut my eyes, and it was full of light. There was light everywhere, and I felt this joy, bliss, and I couldn't remember anything that had happened before. I was just full of this. The only way I felt like I was swimming in love. Every molecule of my body, I thought I had, still thinking I wasn't dead, that us all was a mistake. I was just ecstatic, and I didn't know what to make of it other than I was just so extremely happy. And I kind of stopped for a minute, jumping and being happy, and I looked around, and it was like a room, but it was like you couldn't see real walls. It was like denser white, and I saw a table, like an architect's table with this huge book on it, and it was open about halfway. And I thought, I was looking at that book. What was that about? And then I looked up, and there's my friend, my fiance, my ex-fiance, who had died. And he looks great. He looks, instead of 53, he looks about 35. His hair is darker. He's got no blotches or that horrible stuff, the leukemia, how he looked. He was wearing a sweater. I bought him. I mean, he was happy. He was doing a little jig thing. And like, I know something you don't know. And we were always playing tricks on each other. And we'd say, okay, I owe you one. I owe you one. Well, he won. So I said, oh my gosh. And then I thought, he doesn't know he's dead. And he's really laughing now. And I said, wait a minute. If he's dead, then I'm dead. And I'm in heaven, and I'm happy, and oh, hallelujah. So I thought, why is he just standing there? It was almost like he was in a shadow of a door behind him. And I thought, why is he standing there? What's wrong? And he says, now, Mary Kay, you've got too much work to do. I said, what? And I thought, oh my God, they're giving me the bum's rush. I says, no, no, I'm not, no. And I remember crossing my arms and stomping my foot. And he just laughed. And I looked at that book again, and I thought he was showing me something in that book. And later I thought that was probably showing me what I had left to do. But the bummer is most of the time they won't let you see it when you, or remember it when you get back. And it's like, that would be cheating, I'm sure, but it's really frustrating. You know, if I could have gotten some cheat notes or something, be sure and look up so-and-so, or be sure and do this, or how long would I live? You know, none of that, all erased. So I screamed no. He's laughing, and I open my eyes, and it's bright again, but I can't move. My hands won't go up over my eyes, and I'm hot, and I'm looking around. I can't move my head. There's something in my throat. You know, I can't talk. And I thought, oh my God, I'm back there again. And I look up, and there's my mom and my daughter. And I look eyeballs off to the left, and there's my son-in-law. And I am so totally confused. And my son-in-law says, uh-oh, mother's back. And my mom and my daughter turn around at the same time. And my daughter says, I wanted to be the first thing she saw when she woke up. And she runs over, and my mom was running over. And I thought, who are these people? And why am I tied up? I can't move, and I'm hot. What's going on? And I can't talk. And and then my daughter says, now, Mom, you've been really ill. They didn't think you were going to make it. You're back, and everything's going to be fine. And I thought, what is your definition of fine? This is not my definition of fine. And especially from where I've just come. You cruel people. Why did you, why did this? Oh, it was really good. I couldn't talk. because I would have said some very unpleasant, ungracious things to my family.
Now, but from the light to that point, was there a moment you were walking through a field?
That, yeah, I'm not telling you the entire book.
Oh, okay.
It would take
Okay.
too long. But there's almost always a cool down period for people that come back. There's usually a demarcation line where if you go over that, you won't come back, but you need to gradually go back. So what I did first was, I found myself in a field next to the stream, and again, the heaven thing was gone from my mind at that time, and so was the hell. All I knew was that I had to go down the stream, and it was pretty and it was nice, and so I did, and I met several different people that gave me items and told me what to do with those items, and that came back to me after a few days of being back. I remembered that, and that I had to tell my boyfriend. I had to give him a message that changed both of our lives. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, it took about a week for them to get the trach out of my throat, and they gave me this little device that makes you sound like a robot, and so at least I could communicate and ask questions. And it was, the health thing was still so fresh. I was so frightened. I was afraid to sleep. I was afraid the demons had come back and find me and take me back there. It was terrible. It was just terrible. And I was so angry with my friend for kicking me out of heaven. I was not a pleasant person to be around. And
Now, was you out of the woods medically when you come back, or was there still a chance you could pass? Or
it was touch and go. I mean, I had just come out of the 3-week coma, and I heard the doctors. Sometimes people don't know that you can hear things, and I didn't hear them in the coma, but when I was just laying there sleeping, I heard them say to my parents, "We don't know how brain damaged she is. She'll probably never drive or be able to hold a job. She's going to need care." Oh, that was,
see, there
that
you
was
go.
awful.
It's like, if you've had a near-death experience, throw those odds away, because it seems like if you've had an NDE, you're going to be that miracle. God's not going to send us back to be a lump of, not of use to anybody. We got work to do now.
Well, the doctors all called me the miracle kid. I've in the hospital there, and then when I had to go to a physical rehab because I couldn't move, I had no muscle mass. I down to 86 pounds. So your muscles remember how to swallow and how to crawl and how to talk and all do all that thing. It was gone. I was like a newborn baby. I could not remember, nor did I have the muscle power to do anything at all. Roll over, blink my eyes, and move one finger. That's all I had.
But you had the memory of the NDE.
Oh, yeah. And I thought, you creep of a doctor, you told me I wouldn't remember anything. Again, I didn't know what an NDE was. I knew it was real. I knew this was real. And I didn't know how I got
What year did it happen?
2000.
Oh, okay.
It was right on the 1999-2000 thing. Okay. I was yeah, it was momentous way to start the century. So I just, I knew I had to get out of there if I was going to live. I wanted my life back. And it took 3 weeks of them trying to get me. I had to be able to walk 10 steps unassisted to get into rehab, to the physical rehab, or else they were going to put me in a convalescent hospital where I would have died. I had to fight with the insurance company. The lady that came, I said, "Look, I have been a responsible person that helps people in society all my life. You cannot give up on me now. I will come back, but you have to give me a chance." So they gave me, they said, "We'll give you a week. And if we will set criteria and goals that you have to meet. And then every week your doctors at the rehab will have to get together, the PT and the OT and all these people, and confirm that you are going along this chart that we set out for you. And for every week that you can do that, we'll pay for it. Well, I was there 4 weeks and I had to work fast because that's all they gave me. And I had to literally learn how to crawl and eat and do everything. It was awful. I was there with a whole bunch of other people that were there. A lot of them were diabetics, and they'd had diabetic attacks and stuff. So they're all on diets, right? They've all got, a salad. When they'd roll my chair in to eat, and they'd open my dish, and it was piled with roast beef and mashed potatoes and gravy. And these people would have killed for that. And all I wanted was maybe a milkshake, because my tummy was little, and the smell of that food just absolutely turned me off. Yeah, I could write a book about being in rehab and those poor people and me. And
you literally went through hell.
I did on several levels.
Yes.
I mean, these people, there's always that thing about, well, there's always somebody worse off than you. In this room full of people, I was it. This is as bad as it gets, folks. At least you're not like her. It took a while to get my sense of humor back. Let me tell you, my family was great. They stayed for, probably 3 weeks of it. Had some interesting things happen there. I had a horrible relapse. Almost didn't get to leave again. The other lung collapsed. And I was a little angry with God by then. Hey, what is this all about? I mean,
this was all from ammonia.
Well, it turned into ARDS, which is Acute Respiratory Distress Syndrome. That's what people die of when they've got SARS, when they've got COVID. It's complications of pneumonia that cause your lungs to fill up with fluid. It turns to cement, which means you're toast. So there is still, as far as I know.
That's weird, because you were climbing a wall of cement. You're hiding behind cement.
Right. I know. It was in my chest. Yeah, the whole thing was very strange. And it took me, the upshot, of course, and the message I gave to my boyfriend was we were to get married, and we did. I guess it was in November. Because my health insurance was wearing out and I had nowhere to live. I had no job. I had no money. God said, we're sending her back. And it's like, you better provide, because I can't do it by myself. He was a good sport. We had an 11-year marriage. I ended up saving his life later. He had cancer and he wouldn't go in for treatment, and I made him go. And if he hadn't, he would have been dead in 2 years. He's still alive now. So there was a reason for both of us to be in each other's lives. I've learned so much. It took me 10 years to find IANS. That's the International Association of Near-Death Studies. I just banged around looking for books, anything I could find where people went to hell. I found a lot of them where people went to heaven, and I thought, WTF, man, why didn't I get that experience? I wasn't that bad of a person. Somebody explained this to me.
Right.
So it took 10 years. I finally got my health back. But nobody wanted to hear about my trip to hell. No, if she went, I could go, So nobody wanted to listen. The therapist just put PTSD at the top of my chart and says, you're a mess. Well, thanks. That's very helpful.
PTSD from your hell NDE?
And what I went through in the coma, and
Okay.
I mean, and the whole health
Rehab
thing. And it took me a year to get my health back. I still have a lot of trouble with my lungs. Like I was telling you earlier, this is the second time in 2 months I've had pneumonia. I'm wheezing. Just a minute.
You still have it, correct? You're getting over it?
Yeah, I still got it. But it left me with a lot of stuff. I shouldn't be here. All my doctor says there's no way you should be here. And even now, last time I had lung x-ray, when I was trying to get on a plane to go see my mother. I had chest pains. They took me to the hospital out of the airport. That's always embarrassing. and said, there's it's this horrible shading in your lungs. I said, that's scar tissue from my ARDS. And they said, no, you have a pulmonary embolism. And I said, no, I don't. And they said, oh, yes, you do. I said, no, I don't. And they did some more tests. They said, no, you don't. I said, get me out of here. My pulmonologist had warned me every time they do a chest x-ray, for the rest of your life, they're going to want to do a lung transplant. And I even carried around one of those 3-foot by 2-foot x-rays that he stole out of the hospital for years before they went digital to show, no, this is what I look like when I'm healthy. So yeah, there's been a lot of reminders. But anyway, the thing with ions was there was a lot of synchronicities that happened. Things in our lives, a lot of things happen where you go, wow, that's really weird. If that hadn't happened, this wouldn't have happened. That's weird. Well, no, it's a synchronicity and it was meant to be, and you planned it. I learned.
So where did you get that at, that you planned this?
At ions, because I get to meet a lot of dead people. There's nothing more exciting than going to an ions convention when there's like 500 dead people there. There's such an energy, I can't explain it. It's so joyful for people who have been to heaven and come back and know the score and know what's waiting for us. So different people have different experiences. So if you get them all together and they share them, with their speakers and the books and all that, you can it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle. You can put away, get so much information, because heaven is so huge. We can't even begin with our little tiny human brains to understand what all is entailed. So people bring back different pieces. And when you start hearing about it, the bottom line is they all believe, understand, we're taught, experienced, that we're all little pieces of God. Our soul is a little piece of God. So when we get back home, which is heaven, which is with God, that's where our little soul belongs. We understand that this gets pretty weird. For God to experience things, because God knows everything. If parts of us, pieces of us, go experience other things, God experiences them too. And it's fun. This is all meant to be fun. It's going to go on forever like this.
But it's not all fun. Going to hell wasn't fun.
Well, the experiences are what we choose to come down to learn things. So we start off in heaven, and a lot of people say we have a soul group, and we choose to come to different planets, different realms, different places, and learn things, have experiences. And I've been told by people that if you go to Earth, that's like you get a badge, because that's the toughest place to go. You can go all other kinds of places, but Earth is for heroes. Earth is for the brave. And you get to choose with your group, okay, this time. So looking back, this time I wanted to learn bravery. I wanted to learn empathy. I wanted to learn all these things. So to do that, I got to pick, okay, I'm going to pick you as my husband. I'm going to pick you as my mom. You are one of my best friends, and we've been together a lot. So we'll just show up sometime in each other's life. It could be you right now, Peggy, that we determined back before we came down. Okay, let's meet one time, and we'll say, oh my gosh, I feel like I know you. That's the kind of the key. When you say, don't I know you from somewhere, when you meet somebody new, that's a key that's usually one of your soulmates. And you got lots of them. So say you and I got together for this show, and then maybe we'll never see each other again. But when we get in heaven, we'll say that worked out well, So I've learned that all the things that happened in my life, good or bad, I planned because I wanted to learn something. And when we get back, when we die, this is the consensus. We get a life review. We are not judged by God. We are not judged by anybody. we are just shown this wonderful 3D every second of our lives. And we can just kind of sit there, and we've got guides, and they're standing there saying, well, yeah, you did really well there, or couldn't have done a little better with that one. There's no judgment. There's no, you're not sent to hell. You're not given 30 years.
So what was your experience then if it wasn't hell?
I planned
a
it.
lesson?
I planned it.
An
And
experience to get you to see things differently?
To tell people they don't have to go to hell unless they plan to. I was taught from a very early age, just like a lot of other Catholics or people in other religions or cultures, that there's a vengeful God that is watching everything I do. Somebody's keeping track. In the Catholic Church, you get so many days in purgatory for stealing a candy bar. But if you say a rosary, you get 300 days indulgence off your time in purgatory. It's a huge math problem. So I lived my life believing that. I went to mass a lot. I said lots of rosaries. I did lots of novenas, trying to take that, etch that time off of purgatory. Well, it doesn't work that way. But I bought it. I lived my life thinking that I was going to go to purgatory and there would be some sort of judgment. And I got the math wrong and I went to hell. But now I know that I planned that. I bought it. I lived my life believing it. When I would say something mean to somebody, I'd say, ooh, that's going to cost me. And it did. But now I know that's BS. It's not true. God is not vengeful. He is not sitting on a throne. This is a test that I chose to learn things. And when I die, I go straight back to God. There's no hell for me or anybody unless you believe it, unless you choose it, unless you make it yourself. And that's why I went, so I can come back and tell all those people out there, stop giving hell power. You don't have to go. You're a good person. You're living a life, learning experiences, and you're going to do good sometimes, and you're going to do not so good sometimes. But that's not a judgment. You just try. I was told when I got back, because I said, God, it's starting to fade, and I'm afraid. So tell me again, what do I have to do to not go to hell again? God chuckled and gave me over a series of months, you just be loving and kind. Okay, that can't be enough. Loving, kind, merciful, and forgiving. What else? Loving, kind, merciful, forgiving, encouraging, grateful, non-judgmental, and useful. Just do those things. There's no thou shalt nots. If you're doing all of that, and I mean, Jesus and all the other people always taught loving and kind, love God above all things and your neighbor as yourself. It's always been simple. It's been religion and people that made it complicated, that made all these freaking rules. It's not necessary. And as most people that have NDEs, I'm not a religious person anymore. I have a hard time going to church. I go with my mom. I've got a hard time. I can't say the prayers. I can't say that Jesus is sitting at the right hand of the Father. There's no thrones. That's not what's happening at all. So I'm a spiritual person now. I believe in God and his love and his forgiveness, and I don't worry about it. And when crap happens in my life, and I've had a lot of stuff happen in my life, I now say, I wonder what the plan was for that when I chose that. What am I supposed to be learning? Is it patience? Is it forgiveness? Is it empathy? And then if I can put a name to it, even if I don't, I know that I chose it, and I'm not going to shake my fist at God and say, why are you picking on me again? It just changes everything. I'm no longer a victim. People don't do things to me. I chose them, and I choose how to react to them. It's very freeing. It just makes life more fun. And yeah, everybody gets stuff that happens. Who wants to have pneumonia for 8 weeks? That's not fun. But I learned that I can be too much of a caregiver. This is the third time I have ruined my health by not taking good care of myself too. I was with my mom both of these times that this happened, and she's got dementia, and so it's very frustrating. She's like a 4-year-old half the time. Sometimes she's herself, and sometimes she's crazy and anxious, and I didn't sleep for a month, literally. I except in increments when she wasn't up doing something weird in the middle of the night, and it took a toll on me. So now it's okay for me to say, Mom, I can come visit for a week, but it's not okay for me to go visit with her for longer than that because it jeopardizes my health. So it gives me permission to not kill myself for somebody. That there's no honor in that because I still have things to do for other people. It's just, it puts a whole different spin on my existence here. It's so much lighter. And I know that sometimes I think, yay, I got pneumonia, maybe I'll die this time. Because it's so weird. You're not afraid to die anymore. You just look forward to it. It was interesting. My dad, who I love dearly, died of COVID in January. He was 97. He was a pilot. He was in World War II. He wrote the first chapter of my book because it was with him that my family first came to find God. He became a Catholic, but he was an atheist, 19-year-old atheist. And his plane crashed on a beach in the Philippines and landed upside down. He was dying. And he just prayed, God, if you're really out there, save me and I'll become a Catholic. Well, then some Marines came out, lifted the plane out, pulled him into the jungle. And even though he was shot and had a broken back and all this other stuff, he survived. And if he hadn't, my whole family, which is quite large, none of them would be here, including me.
It's so strange that his NDE caused him to become a Catholic and your NDE caused you to no longer want to be a Catholic.
There you go. It's just interesting. So when, for the last few years, he's known he was going to die. He's been looking forward to it after our conversations. He's no longer afraid. He knows he's going to heaven. I told him when he dies, people will come get you. Somebody from your family or that you love, they come get you. You won't be alone. This is what happens. And he had me go over it and over, and he read books on it and all that. So when it came to, he had COVID, and the blessing was that my sister, my brother-in-law, and my mom all had it at the same time. So they weren't nearly as sick. And so he was able to go to my sister's house to die there instead of being alone in a hospital. Again, this is the synchronicities that you look at it and say, what a disaster. The whole family had COVID. It was, what a blessing. The whole family had COVID. So he was there. I got to talk to him on the phone. I kept saying, Dad, I'm just happy for you. I'm jealous. You get to go home. It's going to be great. So when he was dying, they were all around him and they were fretting, and he was trying to be brave, and he would take the oxygen on his face and then he'd take it off. And they said he was kind of struggling, and all of a sudden he got this look on his face and he smiled, and they said it was like his face was glowing, and then he just closed his eyes. It was gone. And they said, somebody must have come with him. He must have done this. He must have done that. And I knew what happened. And it was funny because the next night I was toasting him a glass of wine. And I said, this is to my Father. And I heard him so clearly in my head say, who art in heaven. And I thought that was our inside joke. It was a prayer, but it was my dad who was in heaven. And I just started laughing. And then he's talked to me several times. But the cool thing was my book publisher, who was also a medium. I met her at an IONS conference, and I never quite got into that medium stuff. We were renegotiating our contract very seriously after my dad died. And she says, wait a minute. Who's Mary? And I says, my grandmother, that's my dad's mom. No, no, I says, it's me. My name is Mary. He says, no, it's somebody else. I says, well, my grandmother, my dad's mom. I says, why? She says, nothing. And then later we're talking and she says, all right. Does he have a sister? And I says, yeah. Is she deceased? Yeah. Okay. I says, what's this about? Well, your dad's here. And he said to tell you when he died, his mom and his sister came to get him. And I said, oh, that's who he saw. And she says, yeah, we were talking. She says, okay, he's got one more thing. He won't go away. I says, well, what? And she said, he said to tell you that the takeoff was bumpy, but he landed safely. You know,
I don't know. I don't know if this means anything, and I don't know why, but for the last 30 minutes, I keep seeing yellow butterflies out of the corner of my eyes.
Do you really?
I've never experienced that. Have you seen me
really?
go like this?
Somebody's trying to get in touch with you. How fun. So that's the fun part of being dead. They're all still with you. That's the other good thing. If you talk to them, they'll get back to you. I just finished a whole book. It's called Hello from Heaven. It's written by a fellow who did a whole study on people who have after-death communications, and they happen all the time. Flicking lights. Oh yeah. And then my dad, he was this computer geek, and every time I would visit, he'd say, "Okay, these files are in here, and here's my book of passwords, which was this thick." And I've hidden them under, if it really says it should be under C, it's really under L. It's like, oh, Dad, don't, I'm supposed to take care of your estate. It was a mess. And so when he died and I finally got to go because it was COVID, it was months before I could even visit. Here's this freaking book of passwords and all his stuff's in there. And I'm just looking at it going, oh, Dad, you have really done it this time, but I would get things that would pop into my mind. And I say, oh, okay. So I'd look it up, and I was able finally after, the first visit, I couldn't get in. Second visit, when I came back, I got it to come on. I could get his files. And I was so excited. And I turned off the computer at night like I always did. And I was sleeping in his room, in his bed, which always felt so good. And in the middle of the night, the computer came on. Boom, and it's all showing up. And I sat up in bed. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, Dad, it was his way of saying, good girl, you got in the computer, because I turned it back off, and that never happened again. I was there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks lately. Never happened. So that again is knowing that not only are we going to live forever, they're living forever. They're home. They're saving us a place. And when we get home, we're all going to, I don't know about you, and I get flack for this, but I like a nice glass of wine at night. But I'm going to meet with all my people in the bar, and we're going to have free hors d'oeuvres and free drinks. And I had one lady she says, there's no alcohol in heaven. And I said, maybe not yours, honey, but there isn't mine. I mean, it's a joke, but that's the feeling is.
A guy I interviewed, Randy, maybe the third, fourth one I interviewed on this. He saw his mother-in-law drinking like at a bar, and her son, who had also passed, was going behind the bar, like knocking off the bottles, being like his normal self. I guess he would be known to do something like that. But it said she was sitting there drinking. I said, was she an alcoholic in life? He said she had occasional drink, but no, she wasn't. But she was sitting there drinking.
You don't need to eat and drink in heaven, but it's just the fact that it's joyful, and it's just like being on earth with the same people, and you get to see, oh, that's why that happened. There's another thing that happens when you get back is the voice. And most people hear the voice. You think it's, when you're here and you don't know about it, you think it's your guardian angel, or it's your conscience, or your higher self or something. But really, the voice is God as the whole thing, including all of us. And it gets really strong once you come back. And at first you think you're schizophrenic because you're hearing voices, and I don't really want to tell anybody about this. But when you get into ions, when I first did, and God forced me to go to ions, I had to go kicking and screaming. And this lady, I was told I was going to meet this, I had to meet this person. I had to go. And I'd already been to one meeting, and all they did was talk about happy stuff. And I felt very fish out of water, and I wasn't going back. But anyway, I got there, And I made it very difficult for anybody to sit around me. I didn't make any eye contact. And this lady walked way down, and then she came back and she sat right next to me. And I thought, that's weird. So I didn't say anything. And at the break, it was Eben Alexander, who was a marvelous speaker. You know, he was a neurosurgeon.
I've heard him at IANS conference.
Atheist guy. He was, wow, he'll knock your socks off. So I turned to her all excited. I said, you know what? I was supposed to meet you today. And she goes, I know. And I said, why? How did you know? She says, well, the voice told me. Don't you hear the voice? And I says, yeah. She says, you'll get used to it. And you do. You hear God all the time, or people from the other side all the time, and you learn to listen. And I don't know. It's great. And yeah, hell sucks. And that's why I'm here. Don't go. You don't have to.
Well, your experience sounds a lot like Howard Storm's, because he was sexually assaulted in hell too.
Yeah. Yeah. He was the first book I found that I like slept with it almost. I thought there's one other person in the whole world that had a bad experience. But the one that really helped was Nancy Evans Bush. She wrote The Buddha in Hell and Other Misadventures or whatever. She's written 3 books now, but I got to talk to her at one of the conferences. I carried her books to the coffee room just so I could be in her presence, you know, and tell her, you changed my life. Her books are marvelous, because she, straight-laced, intelligent lady. What was she doing in hell? You know, well, she was learning that hell, she told in the book, she says, hell is for the brave. Hell is for the people that have the guts to go down and learn really difficult lessons and bring them back for others. And that changed my life from being a damned soul to being a brave soul. That made all the difference.
I was saying yesterday that it's just like God gives us the experience that we need at the time. And sometimes it's a kick in the butt.
Well, again, that's really ourselves. I mean, God does not interfere with our free will. That was one of the hardest things I had to realize, that it's like, okay, why pray if God's not going to intervene? Well, when we pray, God gives us grace. God gives us strength to do what we chose to learn. He doesn't change anything.
IANS wasn't a good fit for me. I mean, I don't buy into a lot. IANS wasn't a good fit for me. I used to have 2 groups, and I was getting ready to start an ISGO group. I had like 3 months of people planned, and Chuck Sweetrock was president at the time, and he told me I could not be pro-life and stay in IANS.